Uh, just a quick intro on Phil. His official title at Adobe is Master Exploder. Cue the music. No, I'm joking. He just turned 27 yesterday, so hopefully he'll be able to pull this one. All right, I'll leave it to Phil.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so I'm Phil. I work at Adobe mostly on Cordova and PhoneGap stuff. If I'm a little rough around the edges this morning, please forgive me. But I will be talking about what's new in PhoneGap 2.0. So we've come a long way since 1.0, and it's pretty awesome that we're back in Portland almost to the day, a year later, since the first PhoneGap Day. And a lot has changed since the last July. So I'm basically going to be going over the 4 things that I think are the most important changes. And then I'll have a little bit of a demo at the end and hopefully get you guys excited about some new tooling coming down the pipeline. So probably the biggest change by far was the introduction of the project into the Apache Software Foundation. Like Andre touched on earlier, it was initially renamed Callback, which was a terrible choice. If you tried to Google Callback, you went nowhere. So we quickly decided that another name was probably a good idea. And so now Apache Cordova exists. It's currently in the incubating stage, which is sort of like a test run before you can actually release as a full-fledged Apache project. And we're just around the corner to having a full-fledged release and graduating to full status. So hopefully that'll be happening in the next couple months. What else is important about moving to the Apache Software Foundation, I think, is that it's kind of like a growing up stage for the project. When we organized it and handled contributors and all that stuff as an Adobe, we kind of just did stuff and didn't think about how to govern a project in a proper way. And Apache is kind of really strict about that, and there have been some pain points in the move, but I think these are necessary pains to go through for this kind of project, especially when it comes to governance. Making sure that everyone has at least the opportunity to give their say and their opinion on big design decisions or the direction of the project, properly voting in committers, that kind of stuff. Before, it just didn't exist. So now, we're in Apache, hopefully it's a little better. And I think it's a big step forward for the project. The other thing we landed was shared JavaScript across platforms, authored by one of our main contributors from RIM, Gord Tanner. And there he is actually having a little bit of a break on the sidewalk after a tough night. And actually, Brian brought up a great point that this is also the reason why we have great tests in the project, just because things like this happen all the time. But it was a big move for the project because JavaScript is really the entry point for it. And the reason we all use the project is because we want to not only go cross-platform, but ideally a lot of us really like JavaScript. And what we found shortly after 1.0 is that all of the different platforms were maintaining their own set of JavaScript and writing the same kind of bugs across all platforms in different ways. So putting all the JavaScript and sharing as much of it as possible in one spot was a big step forward, I think. As well, it's the most contributed to subproject in the Cordova umbrella. We've got maintainers from all of the projects contributing to it, and it's pretty fascinating and pretty intriguing to see what goes into it and how it changes, how it evolves over time. So I think that was a really big thing that we started integrating it around 1.5, finished around 1.8, I think. So that's one of the things that is, I would say, a big improvement from 1.0 to 2.0. The other thing is new platforms. Windows Phone 7 support landed around 1.5. We also have a Beta 2.0, I think, implementation. So we're just expanding the Cordova or PhoneGap umbrella which is always a good thing. This feature was a real challenge for the project, I think. It required a re-architecture for a couple of our platforms. Right now, there's only support for iOS and Android. I think Windows Phone supports it as well. But essentially, it allows you to take a PhoneGap web view, what we're used to, and dropping it into a larger native application. So you don't have to write just a web view-based application with PhoneGap. You could take it, integrate it into a larger native app if that's already what you have. So more options for how to use PhoneGap. Plugins, yeah. We talked about this in 1.0 as well. I'm going to talk more about it. Essentially, we have a spec for plugins now. There it is. Right now, it's on GitHub. Andrew Lunny from the PhoneGap build team kind of kicked it off, started it off. But we've been iterating on it a little bit on the Apache Cordova mailing list as well. I think once we can spend time to convert all of our existing plugins to support this spec, we can start to do things like programmatic installation of plugins, proper testing, proper documentation, maybe a website for discovery, these sorts of things. So check that out if you are a plugin writer. As well, we're documenting them now too. So let's see if I can do this. I can. If you go to the docs site, can you see this? Yeah. So we have a guide on how to write a plugin now, starting with the JavaScript. And yeah, I think it's a good thing. Yeah. And at the bottom here, if you can see it, there's guides for how to write the native bits on all the different platforms we support. So yeah, good job, team. Where'd I go? OK, here I am. CLI, so command line tooling, landed in 1.9. So every platform has a create and debug command. I believe some of them have a log command as well. Lets you stream logs straight from your device or emulator. Not all platforms support that. So really, create and debug are the common ones across all the platforms. So maybe you can see this, maybe you can't. But essentially, you can create a fresh PhoneGap project, provide all the info, like package, name of it, et cetera. And then change your directory into it, run debug, run emulate right from your command line. So, and supports Windows as well for the poor souls using Windows. So awesome. Now, what I want to do is I want to demo the CLI stuff, but taking it like just an extra little notch up. This project is on GitHub. I'll post the code later. There's a link at the bottom. You probably can't see it. So here we go, live coding. Wish me luck. Now, can everyone see my command line? Oh, no. You can't see that. Don't look at that. OK, good. So it's called Cordova Client. Anis Kadri, an employee of Adobe, works on Cordova full-time as well. He started this off. Brian contributed to it. I contributed to it as well. We've tweaked a little bit. And so what you can do is you can go Cordova create. Here, let me bump that up maybe a little bit. There we go. Cordova create and give it a directory. So let's say CDV. Now, if I go into CDV and we look at it, we have platforms, plugins, and www. You basically don't have to worry about the first, or the hidden directory as well. Don't worry about the first three directories. All you are worried about as a developer using PhoneGap is the www directory. That's where all of your assets go into. That's what you modify. That's all you have to worry about. So at this point, I can platform add Android. We'll give it a sec. What it's doing, excuse me, what it's doing in the background, I need some water. What it's doing in the background is creating a native Android PhoneGap project, putting it under the platforms directory. But again, you're not touching that. You don't have to worry about that. And I've got the child browser plugin. Maybe some of you are familiar with it, maybe not. But essentially, it's you can invoke opening up something like the native browser from within your PhoneGap app. It's a plugin. So now what I can do is I can, actually before I do that, let's just take a look at the www assets really quickly. It shouldn't take too long. It's not hard at all. Pretty much as simple as it gets. Script tag, including Cordova, hello Cordova, that's it. And you can see we just have a config XML and an index HTML in here. Now, if I go to add a plugin add child browser, and then we open this up, suddenly we have the child browser web assets in our www folder. And also, it added all of the native bits in the proper spots for your platform, for your native applications. So, the native Android code will put it in the right spots and the right directories, all that stuff. So now what I can do is I need to include the child browser JavaScript plugin, plugin JavaScript. There we go. And I'll add a little link where I will go child browser.show web page. My laptop is slipping. Let's go to PhoneGap.com. Live coding, awkward silence. There we go. That's it. That's all I did. So now what I should be able to do is call build. And that will build up all of the packages, all of the platforms that I added. In this case, I only added Android to it. It currently supports Android and iOS, but I was having issues with the child browser iOS plugin, especially with 2.0. I'm using 2.0 in here as well, so for demo's sake, I'm just going to roll it on Android. So it's compiling everything. It's also going to install it on my phone. Did it work? Looks like it worked. OK. You should be able to see my phone here. This is this phone. Open up. There we go. Can you see that? OK. Cordova sample application. There it is. There's that link, child browser. All right. Cross your fingers. Come on. There it is. PhoneGap.com in the child browser. Woo! All right. So that pretty much concludes my demo. That's it for me. So there's the link to the Cordova client CLI tooling stuff we've been working on. Have a look, fork it. Ideally, this will be dropping into the Apache Cordova project very soon. Thank you.